Number one, I don't have to lose no weight. So that's the good part. I know he's probably starving himself to make weight.
Right.
So, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling fresh. And we're doing everything we need to do to make sure that we're ready for that weight class.
Welcome into the big fight breakdown here on ProBox TV. As always, download the ProBox TV app. Never fall behind on your boxing news. Also, every other week, our live fights Wednesday nights. Best way to see them is on the ProBox TV app. Well, coming up September 14th, it's all about Berlanga versus Canelo, but another very interesting fight, ERISLANDY LARA taking on Danny Swift Garcia for the middleweight championship. I was able to catch up with Danny Garcia. First thing I asked him about was the layoff. The time off, is ring rust a real thing?
I always stay in the gym. I'm always in the gym. I'm always mentoring the young guys. Spend time with my family. I had 2 more kids. I had a girl, Palace, and my boy, Danny. He's 2 months. So I definitely spend a lot of time with my family, definitely staying in the gym. And I'm always an athlete first, so always getting better mentally and physically. So basically just finding myself and staying motivated.
Yeah, talk about that motivation, man. ERISLANDY LARA, 160 pounds. I remember you starting out at 140 pounds, 20-pound difference. This guy who's more experienced at the bigger weight class. What's your thought about this new weight class? How has it felt with that extra weight, man? Has it felt good?
No, it feels great. Number one, I don't have to lose no weight. So that's the good part. I know he's probably starving himself to make weight.
Right.
So, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling fresh. And we're doing everything we need to do to make sure that we're ready for that weight class. Sparring bigger guys, doing our strength, doing our conditioning, doing everything necessary to make sure that we're ready for that middleweight division.
Now, ERISLANDY LARA is the kind of guy, comes from that Cuban system, southpaw, a little bit awkward, good defense. He doesn't mind having an ugly fight. Crowds booing, he's okay with that. You've always prided yourself on being an all-action, entertaining kind of fighter. How do you not get drawn into his kind of a fight and make it a Danny Garcia kind of fight?
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question. He definitely is a disciplined type fighter. He's the type of fighter he's going to do it. He might throw 8 punches around, or he might throw 40.
Yeah.
He might move. He might stay defensively. He might stay in that shell. But you can't let him lower you to sleep. He does that on purpose, try to make you bored, and then boom, catch you with a big shot.
Yeah.
So my game plan is to go in there and fight my fight, the Danny Garcia fight. Dictate the pace, let my hands go, be smart, and don't get hit with no dumb punches.
Now, ERISLANDY LARA is the kind of guy, comes from that Cuban system, southpaw, a little bit awkward, good defense. He doesn't mind having an ugly fight. Crowds booing, he's okay with that. You've always prided yourself on being an all-action, entertaining kind of fighter. How do you not get drawn into his kind of a fight and make it a Danny Garcia kind of fight?
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question. He definitely is a disciplined type fighter. He's the type of fighter he's going to do it. He might throw 8 punches around, or he might throw 40.
Yeah.
He might move. He might stay defensively. He might stay in that shell. But you can't let him lower you to sleep. He does that on purpose, try to make you bored, and then boom, catch you with a big shot.
Yeah.
So my game plan is to go in there and fight my fight, the Danny Garcia fight. Dictate the pace, let my hands go, be smart, and don't get hit with no dumb punches.
You're not only Puerto Rican, proud Puerto Rican, you're also a Philly fighter with the gym wars there and the reputation of being a Philly fighter. How have you carried that your whole career, those 2 labels, and how's it made you better, man?
I tell people this all the time. If Danny Garcia wasn't from Philadelphia, you probably would never hear of him. Just me being Puerto Rican background, the Philadelphia streets, how they raised me, the toughness, how my father raised me, how the streets raised me, that mental toughness. There's something about Philadelphia that makes you tough. And I take pride in being a Philly and a Puerto Rican fighter.
I've seen you do your best work, man. Against Amir Khan, you were a big underdog, got the knockout there. That was kind of your breakout performance. When people overlook you, you do better. Other people look at the odds and get a little upset. They feel disrespected. I see that kind of glint in your eye when you say, man, I'm the underdog again. What does that bring out of you for this fight?
For me, being an underdog, I never let that faze me, because I know that the people who are writing about me, they don't know the work I'm putting in. Those reporters and everybody in the boxing world, they don't know the miles and the gym work I'm putting in and how much I believe in myself. So I never worried about what other people think about me, because I know what I could do. And I know if Danny Garcia is 110% ready, nothing can stop me. And that's the mindset that I always take into the ring.
When you look at not just what people think about it, but your popularity, the energy you bring, man. When it's Danny Garcia, people kind of light up. They kind of want to see a Danny Garcia fight. They know you're going to bring fireworks. When it's all said and done, your career's over with. When people go, man, I always got my money out of a Danny Garcia fight, is that what you want at the end of your career?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I want people to know that, you know, I came to entertain. I came to give the people a show, you know, a real gladiator in modern day times. And that's what I take pride in. I take pride in giving my fans a great show, you know, and being a great champion, never backing down from anyone, fighting the best, beating the best, win some, lose some. But hey, you can never say that I backed down from any challenge, and I was there. I dared to be great.
For our gambling show here at ProBox TV, before I let you go, I got your prediction, man. How am I going to make some money on this fight? What's your prediction for your next one, man?
You know, definitely Danny Garcia will win. Like I said before, I'm ready for 12 rounds. But if I heard him or when I heard him, then I'm definitely going for it. If I smell blood, I'm definitely going for the KO.
You've always been a finisher, man. So fun watching you fight. Best of luck against ERISLANDY, LARA, my man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I see the tail of the tape. Of course, 160 pounds, where ERISLANDY LARA right now a champion in the middleweight division. Danny Garcia making his middleweight debut. Started out, I think, 140 pounds, 20 pounds south of where he's going to be fighting September 14th. Well, I got a panel that knows a lot about, of course, Danny Garcia. With me in studio is, of course, Chris Algieri, and joining us via Zoom, Paulie Malignaggi and Showtime Sean Porter, both of whom tangled with Danny Garcia in the ring. So, Chris, you know, first off, your reaction to Danny Garcia's attitude. He has the positive attitude. You and I talk about something off camera all the time, which is there are those talented guys who don't always put the work in the gym. Danny Garcia was never one of those guys, never uber talented. He puts the work in. What do you think about his attitude right now?
Yeah, I thought he sounded great. You know, I haven't seen him. Obviously, he's been inactive. He hasn't really been in the media spotlight. But he's back now, and he's been in big fights before. So, listen, he's saying all the right things, but. You know, it's one thing to be in the gym all the time, and like you said, but it's another thing to be in a ring. So I'm curious to see how that ring rust can affect him, especially a fighter like him, who's a timing fighter. You know, at his best, he's a phenomenal timing puncher, counter puncher, finds those holes, punches with guys in a very dangerous fashion. He's a very, very difficult guy to deal with, as my two compadres here are gonna fill us all in as they spent time in the ring with him. But very interesting fight. You know, we got two guys that that we did the tail of the tape. It's hard not to look at that 41 years of age for ERISLANDY LARA. But also, you know, similar in height, and obviously Danny's coming up from, 140 once upon a time. ERISLANDY LARA was a 54-pounder. He's moved up to 60 now. One thing that was not on there with ERISLANDY LARA is really long arms, big, long reach, and Danny doesn't. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play. He's going to have to close that distance, even though the height's not that different. LARA is a very defensive guy, southpaw, very, very long arms. But again, timing beats speed, timing beats length. So I'm going to be curious to see how these guys match up.
When you look at it, Paulie, you said something very interesting about this card. When UFC's at the Sphere, you're going to have T-Mobile, which has Berlanga versus Canelo. You said there's swing voters, right? There are people that may know about both, but will go to the one that gives them the better card. Danny Garcia and ERISLANDY LARA are two names most casual boxing fans know. What's your thought about this fight being put together? Is it to get kind of those middle ground kind of viewers to you?
You know, when you look at the age of both guys and you look at the layoff Garcia has had, and honestly, even though Lara has been active, he hasn't spent a lot of rounds in the ring, you could argue that this fight was put together in order just to suck in to the casuals and, put two names that they all recognize. But then more than that, when you look between the lines, there's a world championship on the line. So it's not just two guys you're just randomly taking who are going to be popular. There is a legitimate world championship on the line, Lara's WBA middleweight title. We talk about the middleweight division needing new blood, and not so much new blood because these guys aren't new, but needing that exciting blood. And these are two guys that could bring that with a matchup to the middleweight division. Yes, they're probably both past their primes. Champ, you make a great point with a 41 years old glares out at you with Lara. It's a fight that brings a lot of curiosity, both for the name recognition, the accolades both guys have accomplished, and the styles that we're putting together here. Because we know their styles, but what it's left in both guys. 2 year layoff is never really great at this age, right? You say, yes, people like to argue, oh, I stayed fresh, I stayed in the gym, but the timing of those rounds with the small gloves and whatnot, been away from that. We see how guys can come back. Garcia has always been a very mentally strong fighter, so curious to see now. He's got a couple extra kids. He sort of settled into family life. Are we going to see that same determined, hungry Danny Garcia who's willing to go into a fire and get burned in the process of trying to knock you out, and a lot of times getting that knockout in the process of having to go through that? Are we going to be able to see the Lara who's been giving people fits? Remember the Canelo fight where he gives people fits, a sharp 1-2 when he moves those legs and he's got that southpaw stance. In reality, a younger version of Lara, the Lara original style that really was a mover and was a sharp 1-2 puncher. Didn't see a lot of uppercuts from Lara. Just kept that basic style with that movement, really glided from offense to defense with his feet. That style would have been nightmares for Garcia. That's typically a style that has given Garcia complete nightmares. But, we've seen as Lara has gotten older, his age, he's been a little bit more stationary. The Jarrett Hurd fight comes to mind, and that one was ages ago. And we were talking about he might be slowing down when he lost that fight because he was sitting there blocking and fighting. So, it's interesting. It's interesting the way it come together.
Showtime, you spent time in the ring with Danny Garcia. As Paulie said, he would have trouble with the style of ERISLANDY Lara, that rangy Cuban kind of style, southpaw. How does he get past that tactically in this fight?
Yeah, what Paulie just said right there is what's been ringing in my ears and my mind for weeks now as this fight was announced. This fight is going to be a nightmare for Danny Garcia. I do believe we have a ERISLANDY who believes a little bit more in his power now at 160, and I've heard him speak on it. I've seen him train, and I've seen him like kind of sit there a little bit more than he used to. But this is what I know about Cuban fighters. Cubans are stuck in their ways. Methodically, they do the same thing round after round, and that's how they win. He's gonna come in the ring. He's gonna move on Danny. He's going to pot shot Danny, and he's gonna keep it moving. When he finds a moment, he's going to try to sit down and load up on the left hand, whether it's an uppercut or a straight left. And the timing that he has, because that's his nature, that's where he's going to be effective. When we game plan for Danny, we knew that he didn't have good feet, and we knew that using movement against him early was going to be very, very beneficial for us. I can't imagine anybody getting ready for Danny Garcia doesn't know that. When you are talking about a fighter who has great timing, the number one thing you need to do with that in order to maintain that timing is keep it working. Danny Garcia has been out of the ring for 2 years. There's no secret in that. One thing you cannot continue to develop is your timing. That's not something that you can practice. Timing is something that just comes with your eye and your intuitive spirit. And when it's not worked on, it ain't gonna be there. There's a difference between staying in the gym and getting your mind and your lungs and everything working at the capacity that it does on fight night. Most people can't do it. My dad actually had people come in and he put up cameras and all that kind of stuff and said, "This is fight night." And that's how my dad got me to do a sparring session in fight mode. If you ain't doing that and you ain't getting that blood to boil and you ain't getting your eyes to move as sharp as they do on fight night, it ain't gonna be there. I still think that this is, even though ERISLANDY is 41, I still think this is gonna be a nightmare for Danny Garcia. You're right, he does have that timing, and I think that if anything, like a lot of his fights that I've seen in the past, he's always relied on that timing. When the timing wasn't there, we've seen him drop the ball a couple of times. I don't know, man. I think this is 50-50 only because Lara is 41 now, and he hasn't used his feet as much as he used to in the past. But this is 50-50, and I don't know who's going to win it.
Chris, when we talked about off air, we were talking about the career of ERISLANDY Lara. You went, who did he beat for the middleweight title? And his Lamana, and you went, Lamana? That idea of iron sharpens iron. Talk about the layoff of Danny Garcia. He, of course, ERISLANDY Lara has 4 knockouts in the last 5 fights. But it was a who's that instead of a who's who, right? Has he had the iron to kind of see where he is against Garcia?
He fought Zarafa, Spike O'Sullivan, Thomas Lamana, not a who's who, but this is the middleweight division. This is where we're at right now. It's a very sparse division. You got some guys at the top, Carlos Adames, Alum Kanuni, Janabek, and you got those guys that are very good at the top, but you know, below that, you've got a lot of holes. And so this is Lara getting in where he fits in. And yeah, he's done what he's supposed to do with those level of opposition. So you can't knock him for that. You know, if the class of the division isn't there, you take what you can get, and you can pick up a title at 41 years old. Great. But he has been knocking them out. Again, it's not just who you fight, it's what you do with them. And in terms of who he's had, he's done exactly what he's supposed to do with those kind of guys. And at least he's been active. You know, you said he hasn't been in a lot of rounds. He scored I think it was 2-round knockout last time. LaMotta was a 1-round knockout. Spike went a couple rounds, but
8.
Yeah, that Spike O'Sullivan can't hold a candle to Lara. So, yeah, he's been active, but it hasn't been the highest level guys. Danny's going to be the highest level fighter he's fought in quite some time. But the inactivity kills me, man. We see this so often with young fighters and old fighters. Inactivity is no good. So we got to see what version of Danny Garcia goes up, because that's the biggest question mark for me.
Paulie, as we're sitting here watching this fight, we're going to be tuned in, of course, September 14th to check it out. At what round will you go, oh, okay, Danny's timing is not? When does it reveal itself in the ring? Is it one of those things, the first 3 rounds, your timing's not there, you're going to know against a guy like ERISLANDY Lara? When do you expect to know whether or not Danny Garcia has the timing necessary?
I mean, you might. Danny's style is that he holds position very, very well. So he's going to be looking to hold position. If it's Danny Garcia that we've always come to know and love, he holds to hold position because his timing is based on not making big defensive moves, not over committing to any defensive move in general. His posture is very, very much to sit down, present himself in front of you, you know, kind of be in that range. And when an attack is coming his way, to basically hold that position so he can fire right off it. He does a very, very good job of it. If his timing is there, he's going to at least be getting those shots off. I think what you're going to be looking at is if Lara is able to get these little shots off and evade the pocket, so to speak, without Danny being able to punch with him. You know, because there's time, if you remember the Khan fight, I can remember specifically the Khan fight. He ended up knocking Khan out in round 4, but I think he hurt him at the end of round 3, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Anyway, either way, I remember the round before where Danny was getting off the shots. Khan was throwing them, but Danny was getting the shots off, and they were landing at Khan's shoulder. They were landing around Khan's neck, and Khan was getting off these lightning shots that were accurate and winning the round. But you could see that Khan had to be careful with what he was doing. Khan had to, you know, start to realize that Danny was getting these shots off, and eventually, because Khan never realized that Danny was punching with him, and he didn't have to be and he had to be careful. Eventually, that shot that he was punching with him landed. If Danny's on, you're going to see him getting the shots off in those pocket flurries. You know, that those pocket shots that Lara looks to pot shot with, where it's like, wow, that sharp 1-2, and he's out. You know, you're going to be at least seeing Danny get them off, even if they're not quite landing. That's how you know if his timing is at least starting to work a little bit. He's not getting those shots off, and Lara's getting shots off, and Danny's kind of sitting in the mud and he's not getting off. Then it's going to be hard to even get to that point where he starts landing those shots, because you don't land them right away against a sharp fighter like Lara, but you're at least getting them off until you get close enough to land them. So I believe you'll see that relatively early. You'll see Danny's sense of positioning, if he has it or not, relatively early.
Showtime, when you look at the losses for ERISLANDY Lara, he has 3 of them. 2 of them were controversial, to say the least. I thought he got robbed against Paul Williams. A lot of people thought he beat Canelo Alvarez. That tendency to maybe lose close rounds, could it be about who controls the real estate if this fight goes on? If he gets Lara maybe backing up, I know he's moving up in weight class, but could Danny Garcia basically steal rounds and steal the fight with real estate? You did a lot of that against Danny Garcia.
I don't know if he can still. I think he has to hit Lara. I think if Lara is punching in on the move, you know, again, we've seen this in the past where we felt like Lara was being effective and doing what needed to be done, and he came up short. But I just don't see that happening in this fight. You know, a lot like what Paulie just said. Danny's rhythm is not based on 3s and 4s. It's based on finding you and hitting you with 1 or 2. You know, he likes to find his timing with just 1 punch or 2 punches. You know, if he's not landing those shots, then we got a problem. If he's able to land those shots, even though they're just 1 and 2, it should have that effect that the judges like to see. I think he's gonna, from a punch stat standpoint, I think he's gonna fall behind in the punch stat numbers. But as long as he's able to connect here and there, he could possibly win rounds or steal rounds with the bigger effective punches. I think we all expect him to be able to land big hard shots, because we've seen him effective at 140. We saw him effective at 147 with, one shot or two shots, and they were always big, hard, accurate punches. But at 160, is it going to have that same effect? Other side of that, though, is you got a 41-year-old. Now is that punch that punch resistance, is that declined for Lara, So I think we got some true storylines here that could really tell a couple of different stories, and we could end up somewhere none of us expect to end up at the end of this, even a draw.
When you look at it, Chris, you're kind of our resident fitness, nutrition, lifestyle kind of expert about this kind of stuff. What is it about ERISLANDY's style, his training, whatever it is, that he's still effective? He's still a champion at 41 years old. Is there a sauce that he's been able to go this long effectively? What is it?
Yeah, it's a Cuban hot sauce. Listen, he's Cuban. Cuban guys, like he's listed at 41. He might be older. A Cuban 41 is a different number oftentimes. But so I'm very good friends with Sullivan Barrera, another Cuban, who's on the national team, fantastic fighter. And he's lived with me. I know how he carried himself. When the Cubans come here and they stick to the strip and they stay disciplined, the length of their career can be very long, because they've grown up in such a way that they're so disciplined, they're so focused. Everything to eat, drink, sleep is boxing.
They're institutionalized.
It's
a military.
That's a good way to put it. Yes, it's a very military type style of living and training. That's why these guys are in such good shape, and they can do it for so much longer, and they maintain their physicality and their fitness. I mean, Lara looks great for 41, even now. So and a lot of that is just the lifestyle, and like you said, an institutionalized position. These guys, as long as they don't fall off the wagon when they come to the U.S., a lot of times you're seeing guys with extended careers who maintain that fitness and level of competition throughout.
Is the winner of this, Paulie, maybe the most marketable guy in a weight class, middleweight, storied over history, but kind of in a down cycle right now? Is the winner of this fight maybe the most marketable fighter at 160 pounds?
I'd say so, because the middleweight division is lacking in big marketable names. I'm not sure if the winner of this fight becomes the guy as far as being the best fighter in the weight class, but a lot of times the most marketable guy is not the best fighter.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of where we're at here. I think there's the winner of this fight puts himself in the best marketable position. They might not necessarily be the best middleweight in the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But this idea, Showtime, 41 years old, defending his title potentially against Danny Garcia. How hard is that to do in this business? The respect that ERISLANDY LARA should get as a champion in the middleweight division at 41 years old. Talk about the historical implications of being good at 41 in the sport, man. It's not easy.
I didn't even realize he was 41 until I saw the stat go up, and I was like, wow, he's 41. And then I was like, yeah, he actually is 41. For him to be doing it the way that we expect him to be able to perform on fight night, should he perform optimum, A plus kind of performance like we've seen in the past from him, then we really have to salute who he is as an athlete and as a professional. It goes back to what Chris said, and things that I know about the Cuban fighters as well. They're very militant in terms of their approach to this game. And as long as they can come to the States, wherever it is they decide to defect to, and stay grounded, for the sake of words, a lot of them lose the substance that they grew up in, and they try to adapt to the environments that they're in now. If I know this hasn't been the case for Lara, so should he come to the ring and perform an optimum, we definitely have to salute him with both hands and praise the job he's done. I mean, again, let's go all the way back to him as an amateur and him having to defect. I mean, just that alone makes him a winner. Being able to get to the United States and continue doing what he loves to do makes him a winner alone. And then taking the sport into his own hands and having some hiccups here and there, bad judging, whatever the case may be. He even has a few draws that I don't agree with as well, So someone who's certainly, in my personal opinion, hasn't gotten the fairest shake throughout his career. Should he go in the ring with a 36-year-old Danny Garcia and make him miss all night and use his feet and his hand speed and get through this and possibly even drop Danny Garcia, because he is a bigger 160-pound man at this point? I think we definitely got to salute him with both hands, but let's see how it fares.
You said it. He is the American dream for a reason. We'll see how he fares September 14th. This has been the Big Fight Breakdown. We'll see you after the fight.
He's the pride of Guadalajara, the Mexican maestro, the unified super middleweight champion of the world, Canelo Alvarez. His challenger, undefeated knockout artist and pride of Puerto Rico, Edgar Berlanga. It's prime time.
Canelo versus Berlanga, plus Lara versus Garcia. Saturday, September 14th, live on PBC pay-per-view on Prime Video.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.